Honorable participants, audience, honorable hosts and organizers, I'd like to show you a very unique school, an institute of public education. In my presentation, I will strive to put certain paragraphs of the UN Convention in focus and to draw your attention to the challenges and tasks we have ahead of us. The institution that's been celebrating the 120th year of its foundation creates us a wonderful opportunity to look back and also to focus on the future. When reviewing the past, we can always find something that has relevance to our past, present, and future. We can already say at this point that we have a modern institution that has 21st century content, including its infrastructure and also professional innovative practices. Mozgásjavító, which literally means school for the improvement of the physical abilities of children, is an institution in the 14th district of Budapest, which previously fell under the municipality of Budapest, and then after the reorganization of the school system, it fell under the control of the school district and adds to the diversity of the Budapest school district. The institution celebrated 120 years of existence. They look after 250 students with physical disabilities. So the school offers everyday teaching, physical development from kindergarten age to secondary school age. It was back in 1902 where Richard Totwell made a recommendation for establishing an institution to help children with physical disabilities, and it was in 1903 that the institute was inaugurated. It was in 1911 that the emblematic building was built for children living with physical disabilities. And this building is still part of the blocks of the institution working with living with physical disabilities. They also offer accommodation for children coming from the countryside, and it's also a home to the unit which offers educational services to children living with multiple disabilities. In 1936, the institution was highly recognized by the International Convention. They explained that there was no other complex institution offering hospital services, accommodation, educational services, so a whole range of services. In those days, we already had a complex approach to internal work and providing external help. The home taught children, healed children, offered a vocation, offered boarding services, so it performed complex rehabilitation work. Due to growing demand, starting from 1952, they started shifting elementary school classes to the Art Nouveau building that was designed by Béla Lajta. This building was built in 1908 for blind children. That's the internal entrance, the motifs of the external fencing, and you can also see an Art Nouveau part of the building. And coming back to the 1950s, since after 1955, the whole school continued its operations here, and the original building was home to the hospital. At the peak of the developments, we fully rebuilt the entire complex, renovated the complex, and built new buildings. Also reacquired old buildings that had been taken from us, and we also introduced a structured medical system and created a swimming pool and hydrotherapy space. The infrastructural development created a fully accessible block of buildings that posed a good example for other institutions of public education. There are certain parts, of course, that have not yet been renovated, but as a final result, well, full accessibility was introduced all across the building as a high priority. The building itself carries a task and a responsibility. It has a nationwide scope, taking children from all over the country, so in that sense it's a unique institution. Our mission is to ensure and help the idea that children with physical disabilities should live in society at large as persons with self-determination and independence. We try and help students to live a balanced and active life based on their abilities and offer them opportunities for further development and for the establishment and maintenance of social relations and partnerships. We also wish to prepare them for lifelong learning and also for a successful labor market integration. We wish to support them in making sure they can be in control of their quality of life. We also try and support them in our strive to offer individualized training based on skills and on the creation of an inclusive learning environment. Currently, there are 10 work communities that are supporting the operation of the institution, and we require further innovation. The institution, since 2021, has become a core institute in the educational system. It's a badge of honor, but it's also a responsibility. So we need to offer high-quality educational services. We need to share best practices, run workshops, special showcase lessons, competitions, sports events, and we need to ensure the professionalism of other institutions working within our region. So let's look at the key points that shaped our present. In 1993, a new Public Education Act was launched, and one of the novel features in the law was to offer the opportunity of co-education. It was still only a weak strive to that end, but in the following years we offered special options for children with unique disabilities to have their education with, so to say, normal children. And this strive was given the right motivation. However, in the institutions supporting co-education, acceptance and a unique approach was still lacking. In 2004, when we joined the European Union, these processes were significantly accelerated. Through some application schemes, we supported a change in attitude by majority schools. There were some success stories, but we still faced further difficulties. The co-education of children with unique needs at kindergarten and elementary school level was launched with the support of specialists and professionals. Co-education is no more a question today, but the question remains as to where we can do it best with the highest results, where we put the stakeholders, so to say, the child with the special needs in focus. And as professionals do their specific job in an increasingly professional way. In 2007, the year when the UN ratified the Convention on the Rights of People Living with Disabilities. They must have equal access to educational facilities, and there was also a ban introduced on discrimination. In a number of publications, they published their expectation towards the equal treatment of people living with disabilities, and I'd like to point out the following: the creation of a fully accessible environment, a full accessibility to info communication services, full accessibility in education, and the requirement of reasonable adaptation. Under EU rules, employers need to adjust the working environment to the needs of people living with disabilities. We have Fencer, a former Olympian in wheelchair, who also works with us, and because of that reason we lowered the kitchen counter. But there is a question over whether the school chose the right solution when one of the students suffered an accident and lost their lower limbs. They realized that the multi-story secondary school building was not fully accessible at all. So they started providing accessibility, and they provided a lift to make sure the student could get to the first floor, and that's where the whole class was moved. However, the language laboratory and other specialized classes were on the higher schools, which meant that the person's classmates couldn't use these rooms either, because their disabled classmate couldn't make it there either. In 2011, the new Public Education Act was introduced, supplemented with a number of provisions that support equal access, obligations, and opportunities for people with disabilities. But let's look at what the diagrams say. Via some charts, I'd like to show you some figures and compare them. This slide shows how the locations change where we perform our tasks. Now you can see figures from 10 years ago and also statistics from the past 3 years. Locations of performing tasks are not the same as the number of institutions, because we can perform tasks in a number of occasions. We can see from the chart that there are more and more institutions that offer co-educational services to students. It's a rather busy chart, and if we had more time, it would be interesting to analyze which type of public education institution takes on the highest number of children with special needs. If you look at the bottom line, you can realize that in 2021, we had 1,280,661 students participating in public education, and next to it, we see the figure of how many students we had with special educational needs. The percentage values are more telling, and that's what we can see on the next chart. We can show you the percentages and the change in those percentages, and we can see that there is indeed an ongoing change. The question may arise as to in what proportion we can offer co-education or separate education to children with special needs, and the numbers continue on the next chart. The blue columns show the total number of children with special educational needs, and the orange columns next to it show the number of children with special needs who are in a co-educational scheme. We will again need the numbers here and percentages here, so we see that the number of children with special needs in a co-educational setup is ever increasing, but we cannot sit back and just relax. There are still questions such as, did we manage to sufficiently prepare for the co-education of children with special needs? Has there been a true change in attitude that excludes discrimination, offers equal opportunities, and performs its daily educational services in that spirit? Do certain institutions have a special role in creating a world without discrimination? I am sure I could add many more minor or more significant questions to the list of questions, but I generally believe that the acceptance of people with disabilities and the declared expectations regarding them have greatly moved forward.
Az egyenlő esélyű nevelés.
Now in 2023, we still look forward to having more good solutions, and that's shown on slide 9. We are creating new words, new expressions, which actually show a higher need for concepts such as reasonable education, need for support, acquiring digital knowledge, and support for tailor-made educational and teaching services. From this side of Korong Street, children can access this school via a huge wide gate where the majority of students come into the institution, young and old. They typically come by car, accompanied by their parents. There is one shared characteristic, though. They all have physical disabilities. And next to the diagnosis I mentioned, more than half of the students have other special educational needs. Some have speech impediment or mental disabilities, potentially autism, or multiple disabilities. So we may ask the question as to where inclusive education could take place or should take place. There is one more point we shouldn't forget about, but we should specifically focus on, which is how we could introduce inclusive practices within our institution. That requires a change in attitude. If we accept that our students, our children are different but also unique, they are individuals, and we accept that they have a diversity of different skills, and then certainly we will have reasonableness in the focus of our attention. Inclusive education is a process, a way that has similar components but also some unique features. Diversity, variability, and the lack of preconceptions only add to us, including our institution. There is always a solution, and there is always an even better solution. This is what the last slide but one shows. David is in the 4th form. He learned to type in 1st grade, and now he follows the lessons in OneNote, where the teacher adds the tasks and also includes the tasks as a background picture. He can actually control the cursor with a joystick. Sometimes he gets help from the keyboard so that he can press the keys with the right force. These movements, while sometimes he takes several steps to do that, he does them so fast that he can progress with the class, but unfortunately he needs to carry this equipment with him. Hunor cannot see well, and the teacher needs to prepare the school material, so it's difficult to follow what's on the blackboard. So now they have a digital display where an empty blank page can be opened, and while the other children actually look at the blank page and take notes as they can, Huni can connect to this whiteboard and look at it so close that he can follow what's happening. Zsóka is using an amplifying application. She can turn it on and then find her way in OneNote. This is something that enables her to see the part of the text that she needs at that given time. So far, I was talking primarily about educational aspects and stories, but I'd like to share one story with you. We have one student who said, if I could only go out in the street, I would feel the adrenaline running through my veins. He said this while participating in shooting a film. And there was a story prior to that on the first day of the summer holiday. The school was empty, and when I got there in the aula, I met, let's say, Richie. Let's call him Richie, and his mother. We talked about his school marks, favorite book, and the fact that now they came to a camp, but they haven't paid the camp yet. And we said goodbye, and then a good half an hour later, I went to a different wing of the building in a somewhat remote place. I bumped into Richie and his mother again. And his mother's eyes were teary, and I said, "Can I help? Has anything happened?" And Richie said, "Well, for weeks, she has been wanting to ask him a question, and she didn't have the courage, but now she asked him." I was very curious, so I asked if I was allowed to know what the question was. So Richie asked the question, "When will he die?" And then I started crying, said the mother. So I sat between them. The mother started drying her eyes and started paying for the camp, and Richie looked at me, and the question was still in his eyes. And I said to him, "Richie, please look at me thoroughly, from the toe of my shoes and up to the top of my head." And after some moments, I asked him if I could ask him a question, and he said, "Of course." And I said, "Richie, listen, can you tell me when I would die?" And his answer was, no, he couldn't. "Neither do we when you are gonna die," I said to him. "There is one thing we know. We are working day by day to make sure we plan the day, we implement the day, and we do that with tomorrow and the days after, and that's what we ask of you as well." And now the only question that stayed with me is that I wondered which book can give us the answer, and indeed Richie has dystrophy, muscle dystrophy, so he indeed has a lower chance of growing into adulthood, even young adulthood. And it's stories like this that make us who we are, together with them and for them. One thing is certain, we need all of our dedication, work and openness to cope with this. And I wish and hope that we will remain open to the rest of the day as well. Thank you.